All right, what's going on, everyone? So in this video, we were talking about DBT sources, how to set up your sources on DBT. On last video, we talked about how to create your first DBT project on DBT Core, and today I'll be showing us how to set up your sources. Right, one of the first things you do after you have created your project is to set up your sources, right? So that's basically what we'll be doing. Okay, so if this is your first time, please do hit the like button and subscribe button so you're notified once a new video comes up. And we're going to be working with so I imported a data set on my BigQuery account, and this should be it. Yeah, just a moment, and I'll share that with us right now. And so that's the data set we're going to use for this project. This is data set we're going to use as our source data set, called Olympics data. So let me just make this clean. Alright, so this is data set we're going to be using as our source, Olympics data, and it has two tables in it: athlete event and Nooks region. Right, so this is the data set on cargo. I just wanted something very simple we could use to explain this stuff. Alright, so on our last video, I showed us how to create our project, and then we created our project on DBT, and this was our project, right? So you can use the previous video to check it out. So what are we going to be doing now? So first things first, we're going to be adding our sources. So I'll just go to DBT documentation so we can use it as a guide. All right, so DBT sources, right? So one of the good things about DBT is that you can, once you have your source data set, right, your raw data from the database or whatever source you have, you can ingest those sources into a staging layer, right? So DBT has a setting with the advice you structure your project. So it has your first layer where you just bring in your sources, and then you reference your source data using the source function, as you can see here, your source function, right? So sources makes it possible to name and describe your data loaded into your warehouse by your extract and load tools. By declaring these tables as sources in DBT, you can then select from your source tables in your models using the source function, helping define lineage of your data. You can test assumption on your source data and calculate source freshness of your data. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a YAML file, right? So DBT works a lot with YAML files. YAML file is one of the files that helps you set up your configuration and stuff like that. So we have our DBT project YAML file. We have our profiles.yaml file that's hidden in your system, right? And so now we'll be creating a YAML file that would carry our source configuration and our model configuration, right? So yeah, so I'm just going to copy this. Yeah, don't have an example here. Okay, so yeah, let me take this. I'll just copy this and then come here. So in my models folder, that's where I'm going to create my YAML file within my models folder. So take notes that YAML file is within your models directory, right? So I'm going to create this file in my models directory. I'm going to call it Olympics data, right? .yaml file, Olympics, how is this spelled? Olympics data .yaml file. Yeah, so I'm gonna paste this, right? So why is there always version 2 here? I really don't know, but then you always put version 2. Okay, so the name of this data schema, or data set rather, is Olympics data, right? So there are some more source configurations, so I'm just going to click on that to get information, database name, and that. So let me see source property instead. Okay, yeah, so a description. So I have name, yeah, then I have description. Okay, so let me just take this one instead, right? This is cooler, easier. So I'll eventually don't need everything, right? So I'm just gonna need just the first, yeah, just this, right? So the name is a string, and the name is what I'm gonna call Olympics data, and yeah, description. I'm going to take this out and bring this here, and we see. So I'm going to say this is the raw data set used for this tutorial. All right, so I'm also going to define the database as well. Let me confirm. Okay, looks good. Okay, database. So database will be our project ID on BigQuery. I'm just going to go to BigQuery and copy that. Yeah, and I'll put that in here. And then the schema, which is also I don't need all this, right? So if you're ingesting your data like using Airflow, you're going to have like your loaded add field. Not just Airflow, like any of your ingestion tools, you have a loaded add field. So these are the fields that are used to test your source freshness, right? And other stuff like that. But we don't need all this. So at this point, I'm just going to include our table name. So let me go back to DBT documentation. Yeah, so I'm gonna take this now, and I'm gonna say tables. Let's see. Yes, just name. I'm gonna paste this here. All right, so let me see. I'll just add schema, and I'll call the schema Olympics data. All right. So the tables that we have in our data set, in our Olympics data set, are we have athlete events and NUC regions. Athletes events, and I'm hoping I spelled this correctly. Yeah, okay. Athlete events and NUC regions. So I'm gonna put this as the table names. So at this point, we could also add description to our table names, right? Athlete data, athlete events rather, and then call this NUC regions. So DBT is so great that it allows you to also put documentation instantly. So it's something that you would want to try to do almost immediately, like to just put all the information on your source data set quickly as you're doing that. So this contains data about athlete events. Okay, and we want to add columns and tests, right? So let's see what we have there. That's something we can do right now. Yes, we can. So I'll just take this part here for columns. I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna paste this down here. Just gonna bring this because the indentation is quite important as well. Let me confirm that it's indented properly. All right, columns names. Okay, so this goes back here. So there's a column called ID. This is ID of the athlete. DBT comes with them tests. We'll talk more about the test when we're talking about testing with DBT. But then I'm going to take this out because that ID is not unique, right? Because an athlete can come several times on that table, but then it's not null, right? Yeah. So for this particular table, we've described the table. We've put in a table that we want to use for testing. You could also put in all your columns, right? If you want to do that, or if they're useful. Right, so I'm just going to stop here and I'm going to save this at this point. Then I'm going to create my first file, or before then I'm going to create a folder within this model directory. Within the model directory, I'm going to call this folder staging. All right, and within this staging folder, I'm going to create my staging file. I'm going to put stage in front. For my first table, I'm going to call it stage outlet events.sql. right? So every model within SQL, within DBT rather, should have a .sql extension, whereas your .yaml extension is for your configurations for DBT and other stuff like that, testing, documentation and other stuff like that. You also have seeds, which we'll talk more later, and snapshots and other like analysis, other stuff we'll talk about later. So basically, I'm just going to do something very simple right now. I'm going to say select star from my one of these tables here. So one of the beauties with DBT is that because when you use the source function, it allows you to reference to see the data lineage, right? So that you can know where the data is coming from. You can see the dependencies and the downstream users, right? What's upstream and what's downstream, right? So I'm going to use the source function, DBT source function. Source function takes 2 parameters. Let's see, yeah, it takes a source ginger function. It takes in 2 parameters. The schema, that's the source name and the table name, right? So for us, the source name is the Olympics data, and then the table name for us right now will be athlete events. All right, so I'm going to control save or command save, whatever I use. I'm just going to do a DBT run now and see what happens. Okay, so DBT run is going to run everything just like we saw the last time. Yeah, so found one model, found one test, right? So as you can see, this is DBT core, and then it says I have 2 sources, right? There are 2 tables in my source file. Successful, right? So we see the log, start CQ view model was run and processed, right? One view model. It's a view because in our YAML file, in our DBT projects.yaml file, we have said that in models, everything under this folder, example folder, should be materialized as a view. So I'm going to change this to staging, right? Because that is what I wanted it to be. So everything within the staging folder should materialize as a view and not as a table. So really, that's really how you set up your source. So we're just going to do the second, create the second table, which is Nook regions.sql, and I'm also going to do select star. So best practice actually is not to do select star, is to write your column names one by one, right? So that you can do some minor cleaning on your table. Maybe you want to change a column name, you want to change a particular column format from string to integer, that sort of a thing. So like that's like best practice. But for this purpose, I'm just going to do select star, right? So select star from, I use my source function, my source ginger function. I put in my Olympics oh my lord, Olympics data, and I'm going to put my table name Nook regions, and I'm going to save. And then so you can change this to Ginger SQL, right? So that you can like see the color configuration in your text editor. So I'm using VS Code, right? So everything. So I'm gonna do DBT run again on my terminal. So I'm using DBT core, right? One of these days, one of the videos I'll show us how to set up DBT cloud, right? So that you can see it's quite different, but then it's really the same thing. It's not like it's different, it's the same thing, just that setup is really minimized, right? Because everything's on the cloud. Yeah. And so I'm going to do DBT build, right? So DBT build will run DBT run and DBT test as well for everything, for all our models and our source configuration. So let's just run everything at once. Okay, so it's 319 macros. Okay. We can see the not null test passed, right? So awesome. So if we come back to our BigQuery data set, we would find this inside this our target schema. Remember we created a target schema in our profiles YAML file, and saying that everything we run on our dbt core locally should target this particular schema. So I'm going to refresh this right now. Okay. Yeah, so here we go. So we have our views. I'm just going to drop this first table we use when we set up our dbt. Drop this and drop this as well. All right, so here we go. We have our views created. Remember, it's a view because we have said that everything in staging folder should be a view. So ideally I should make my age and an integer. All these are integers, right? If I did them one by one. So yeah, really this is how you set up your source on dbt. String field 0 1 2 3. Interesting that there are no column headers here. Let me see. Okay, the same way it is here. So okay, so I hope you got a thing or two out of this video. Please stay tuned for the next dbt series. All right, thanks. Bye.